of bonus content with the Midnight Express and some other goodies we're cooking up. Pitching $1 a month. That's all I ask, all I want. I take more, but I don't want to be greedy. But head on over. Patreon.com/0and09. Oh, hey. Hi. How you doing? Last week was a bit of a clusterfuck, eh? It's okay. We got it. It's coming under control. Just like this audio mixing. We're getting it. Slowly but surely getting back in the rotation of things here. So, yeah, last week was goofy. Tried to record Monday, wasn't feeling it, killed it halfway through. Went ahead, recorded then Thursday. Twitch decides that they're going to go ahead and mute part of the audio for the second buffer we use. And then they denied my appeal process. So, put out a janky episode, finished editing that, all that, and got it out yesterday. So, sorry, you're going to get like 2 episodes back to back. I guess it's not a bad thing, but yeah. So, we're testing out a new system with another service. So this should be going to both YouTube and Twitch. Now, for YouTube, I have no idea how that works. So this is going to be just trial by fire. I'm going to go by the seat of our pants and hopefully get it figured out. But ideally, this means everything gets out on time now. We don't have any more issues. And, yeah, keep on getting better, getting stronger. So, I am exhausted. I had a long day. And then totally just went bananas. Like, crazy mauling bear action. And wow. The druid class is one I've never really played. But I typically play healer, so it made sense. We'll go ahead and we'll roll a healer and just jump right into it. But all their stuff is heal over time. It's not just it doesn't make sense as a healing class. It's like, let me throw up these 5 spells that will proactively protect you, but they're not going to do that good of a job of it. But I get punished for continually recasting them when I need to let them run out, because you get a big healing boost at the end. And when shit starts hitting the fan, I can't rely on the heal over time. I have to start throwing out regular heals, of which I have 1. So I don't know if they're more viable in later stages, but definitely 1 to, what am I at now, 48 is just, it's terrible. It's an awful experience. So we decided, let's try something new. We'll go tanky tank. Go the big angry bear form. Now, I've tanked before with the Death Knight, and Death Knight tanking's pretty fun. I dig it. You raise up some zombies, and then they change the spec in the next expansion, and then you start shooting ice everywhere, and then they change the spec in the next expansion, and then you're a vampire. Whatever. So, I'm waiting. We're going to work up and get back to the Death Knight level, who I think he's sitting there in his 80s. But, good times, yo. Good times. Speaking of good times, we did it! We did it! Unwashed Asses is in the final running for the Podcast Awards 2017. We're against 8 other shows in the mature category. Now voting comes down to a select group. I think it's like 50 podcasters, 250 listeners, and then an independent panel of like legacy judges. So, yay us, we did it. I'm so happy. Thank you guys very much for going out and registering and voting and all that. Um, we'll see how the voting turns up. Now, this is something I don't know if, like, should I mention it or not, and what does it hurt, but totally got picked to be a judge. So we get at least one vote that it's better than nothing. So that's something, you know. We'll find out in beginning of September, mid-September, who the winners are. So exciting stuff. Now they're saying, "Oh, we've reached all of our funding goals, and everybody's gonna get a trophy this year." But let's just see if we even win the damn thing. We'll have to do something special if that happens. So, what do we got to talk about today? Let me pull up my handy dandy Wrong Children show. Okay. So the one thing I really don't want to do with the show is start doing like, oh, let's pull 3 subjects from the current events. What's going on in the world? And then do like a shitty weather report. But something's been irking me. Something's been popping up in the old Google news feed a lot. And that's Nazis. Nazis. I did not see that coming. Did not see that coming. The Germans. For months now, it's been a lot of like, what the fuck do they call themselves? Alt-right movements. And it's becoming more and more pervasive to where we have the attack in Virginia, where some Nazi shithead decides to take his car and ram it into a bunch of people. Kills one, critically injures several others, and then, you know, moderately injures several others on top of that. I'm going to leave politics aside. I don't care what you are. Don't care what I am. But somewhere along the line, our culture has decided to... we've leaned too far into the political correctness and not necessarily forgiving, but tolerating others. Our tolerance levels are at all-time high, while at the same time being at an all-time low. And the reason I say this is because a lot of these movements and rallies and gatherings that the alt-right, also known as Nazis, have been doing are, you know, just what Nazis have always done. They go rally, they say, oh, you know, the Jews. I shouldn't do a German accent because, one, I don't do a good German accent, and two, they're not all German now. You know, the Jews, they're ruining everything, and we have blacks and Mexicans and immigrants. Everybody's coming in. They're stealing our jobs. They have them in a basement. They have 27 jobs down there. They're taking them away from every other person out there, and they're feeding them bread that's moldy and, you know, vinegar to drink it from, and they're taking our jobs, and we must eliminate them, and, you know, protect the sanctity that is the white master race and all this bullshit. Now, there are a few things I just absolutely cannot tolerate. I abhor them. Snakes, definitely top of that list, but running a very, very close second is Nazis. Now, I don't know how or why Nazis have started to come back on the radar, or why people think it's acceptable, or why they would even be into it and supporting that mindset from the get-go. Now, granted, I've been exposed to several very racist scenarios and beliefs and all that, and stereotypes are one thing, but just outright hating somebody because of the way they look, they talk, or just because of their ancestry, their heritage, what they are, that's just fucked up. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, I was going to say Nazi, but that's not going to really be applicable here because everybody's equally a giant piece of shit. Cosmically, we don't fucking matter. You don't matter. I don't matter. Your kids don't matter. Your grandparents don't matter. Nobody matters. In 100 years' time, most of us are going to be forgotten. In 10,000 years' time, all of us were going to be forgotten. Unless you can go out and do something truly spectacular like what Elon Musk is trying to do with getting us into that next stage of interplanetary travel, or you go the vice versa route where you're Dr. Robotnik, I'm gonna blow up a moon. Then yeah, you might get yourself solidified into the annals of history. But then even then, go out a little farther, 100,000 years. You're forgotten. We've transcended. By that time, we will have transcended what we are. Humanity's not going to resemble what it is now, and you will be forgotten. So, I guess bringing it, we're going to zoom back in. We've gone really far out. We're going to zoom right back in. I've seen shitty people of all creeds. I work in a service industry. I've worked in several service industries throughout my life. And there's not one race of person, there's not one set of beliefs that a group of people may have that makes them especially shittier than others, except for Nazis. Nazis have always been the thing, like, they are the go-to bad guy. Like, unequivocally, throughout human history, there is never been a group so utterly stuck on a rug here, reviled as Nazis. It's easy to point out and say, oh, they are the bad guys. It's not like, oh, well, the Nazis had, some good points here. Hitler wasn't wrong about everything. No, it's pretty clear cut that the Nazis were the bad guys. Now, my hatred of Nazis may be a bit irrational when you consider things like Bayer, the medicinal company, would test out several of their products on folks stored in concentration camps. I'm not going to back any of this shit up with documented proof. If you want it, go to Wikipedia. I just rant into a microphone, you listen. And that's how we win awards. No, so I don't buy Bayer products. Ford received an honorary award from the Nazis, thinking, oh yeah, you know what, Jews suck. And they're like, yeah, we could totally get behind that. Ford's kind of on my shit list. The Beetle, brought about during World War II era Germany. Used very heavily through the German military. And you'll say, well, Christian, you don't have any money anyways. Why are you talking about what cars you wouldn't buy? You'll drive whatever's given to you. Yes, I've driven several Fords. And you know what? They were all pieces of shit. All of them. But there's never been any other group. Like, you look at Pol Pot. Yes, genocidal maniac. You look at Attila the Hun. Or Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is who I'm thinking of. Dude burned, murdered, and raped his way throughout history to where a very large percentage of us can trace our lineage back to him. Waco cult, Scientology. There have always been groups of bad guys, but if you ever had to rank them, Nazis almost always predominantly take the top of that list. So, again, I can't understand how or why somebody would start backing this cause. And, even it became somewhat of a, not even somewhat, it became a full-fledged joke where, you look at movies like Blues Brothers where you have the Illinois Nazis, which are the worst Nazis of all time. And the running thing is, you beat the shit out of Nazis. They are fucking disgusting piles of human shit. We should want nothing to do with them. You look at things like Rick and Morty, where Rick and Summer start hitting the gym, get all jacked up, and they throw on some X Gonna Give It To You and start fucking up a bunch of different people that legitimately deserve it. One person, which is a Nazi. So when I go on sites like Imager and Reddit, and I see in the comments section, somebody will post up like, "Oh well, fuck Nazis and they're big pieces of shit, and you should beat up Nazis," or essentially anything criticizing this Nazi alt-right movement, whatever you want to fucking call yourself, you're a goddamn Nazi. Um, and then in the comments, there is a significant portion of the people who will say, "Oh, well, I'll fight and die for their right to say whatever they want, even if I don't agree with it. And it's not okay to hit Nazis. Violence is never the answer." Um, and it immediately devolves into a fight between the users, which is standard. It happens. But I thought it was pretty universally agreed that Nazis just fucking suck. How could you ever side with them? Yes, I get it. Free speech is one thing. But not free speech at the expense of sitting there and tolerating it. For every choice someone makes, there are consequences. If you decide to be a Nazi and spew hate speech, expect to have your head bashed in. Conversely, if you go out and spew that any race is inferior to your race, again, be Black, Asian, Latino, Mexican, whatever. If you go out and just start spouting that you are inherently better because you are X, Y, or Z race, you're just as big a piece of shit. Nazis aren't only going to edge you out just because they have that notoriety. So I don't get why we're defending them. Let them talk, but then go beat their heads in. It seems that we're moving into a phase of we have to let people speak their minds. We have to accept what they're saying and respect it regardless of whatever it is they are saying. And I argue that's not the case. But I just don't get it. I don't get why somebody would want to be a fucking Nazi. I mean, logically, it makes no sense. Are you just angry and looking for a scapegoat? And now we see these posts of people who had their pictures taken in said movements or rallies, and saying, "Oh, well, don't label me as a Nazi." There's literally a fucking swastika on a flag flying behind you, and you don't want us to call you a Nazi? You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. By the way, I've been listening to Cake lately. Fantastic. You don't get to say, "Well, we're the alt-right," or we're a white supremacist party. It all breaks down to the same fucking thing. Nazis. Now, I am a very firm believer that you don't have to tolerate such speech. It comes back to what I said earlier, where every decision has a consequence. You may not think you have a choice, but you do have a choice in every situation. You just have to deal with the consequences. Like, for example, you have a starving family at home. You, legally speaking, couldn't or shouldn't steal because that's not a choice, because that's the wrong thing to do. It's nothing stopping you from doing it, though. You can go out, you can steal a honey glazed ham, take it home to your family, feed them, and then run that risk of getting caught. You get caught, you go to jail, you do your time, or you pay a fine, whatever. But point still being, you made that choice that wasn't necessarily presenting itself as a choice. Now again, I'm dumbing it down. I'm making it very, very simple. So that same thing comes to spewing hate speech. We should not have to sit and let people speak out. Just like when we have protesters blocking roadways, preventing traffic from moving, ambulances from moving. You can do it. It's an incredibly dickish thing to do, but then don't bitch and moan when somebody decides that they've had enough of it, or they ate a crap load of Taco Bell and White Castle, can't hold it anymore, and rather than shit on their car seat, they got to get home. You're blocking the path. They're going to move through you. Choices have consequences. So let them go out. Let them spew their hate speech. But don't stand there and protect them. Let that, I'm not going to say it's the karmic fist, but let whatever befalls them befall them because of decisions they've made. And to those that say violence isn't the answer, sometimes it is. Not saying, fight out every problem that you have. There's definitely, I personally have never been in a physical fight because I've been able to talk my way out of it each and every time. I've come very, very close, but I've been able to not get in a fight. So what happens then when we have people saying, well, don't attack them. Violence isn't the answer. I seem to recall a time where punching Nazis was the thing to do. Not even back in the 30s and 40s when it was in the height of, vogue and style things to do. Look at a couple years ago. Captain America. First Avenger rolls out. Now you can say, well, those aren't Nazis, they're Hydra. And the latest comic book run with the writer who decided, Hydra aren't Nazis, they're actually good guys working to subvert the Nazis. No. Hydra are Nazis, Nazis are bad. Captain America punches Nazis. He fights evil. If you are standing against Captain America, odds are you're on the wrong side. Not just because America, but because Captain America has a very strong moral compass. It points him in the right direction. So why would you stand on the side that is allied against Captain America? We saw how much of a dick Iron Man is in Civil War. Why would you ally yourself with Iron Man and the Nazis? I don't know. I've lost so much faith in humanity, and to see something like Nazis who left a very, very significant impact on history, to the point where you can no longer grow a Charlie Chaplin mustache. The swastika, despite having humble, peaceful origins, can never be used without stigma again. I don't care what the fuck you say about it. Oh, well, it's a symbol of peace, and it comes from this religion. And you know what? Nazis fucking tainted it. You cannot look at the symbol without immediately thinking Nazis. Same thing with the Charlie Chaplin Hitler stash. So I don't know. I'm at a loss here, and I know the country's getting torn and divided, and I don't want to get political with it because you all suck just as much as I do. Nazis suck even worse than that. So why are we allowing them to exist? Not advocating for the murder of them, but why are we giving them public forum? Why are we giving them airtime? Why are we paying attention to what they're saying? Ignore them or shut them up and snuff out trouble before it begins. Fucking Nazis. Speaking of shitty things, though, I forgot I have to do some laundry tonight. I've got no work clothes left. And because I don't know how to segue properly, Game of Thrones! Yeah. So season seven's rolled around and everybody's digging it. They're like, "Oh my God, Jon Snow and Daenerys, they done met. They're gonna have babies, but they're related, so they're gonna have mutant inbred babies. But the way it works with Targaryens, they're either great or crazy. No in between." Fine, whatever. I fell off the Game of Thrones bandwagon. Season 4, end of season 4. Now, I can appreciate it for what it is. It's a very wonderfully told story with interesting characters, a very large roster of characters interacting with plenty of political intrigue and death, and a hint of zombies and dragons and magic that doesn't really make itself apparent until season 5. It's there. It's coming. It's coming, guys. It's totally going to be here. Just gotta wait. Just gotta wait. They're on their way. They're on their way. But you don't really get a solid payoff. And the formula always seemed to break down that the first 2 episodes are astounding, just tremendously impactful, wonderful television. Last 2 episodes, even more so, especially the penultimate episode, the one just before the last. Fantastic. You have the battle at the wall. You have other really good stuff. And then you have the last episode, which leaves you with a really big cliffhanger, like Jon Snow dying, or Cersei being carried away by Frankenstein the Mountain, or all kinds of, again, wonderful, wacky stuff. But you have this slog of content that you have to get through the middle of each season, say episode 3 up until episode 8 or 9, where George R.R. decided to pick 2 characters and then have them go on a Frodo Sam style journey across Westeros or Eastern Plaguelands, whatever the fuck the other continent's called. And it's aggravating. Like, sometimes it works in the case of Jaime and Brienne of Tarth, but it became formulaic to the extent of, we know a character's going to die, we don't know who it is, we're not going to really see the payoff until the last couple episodes of the season because we've been building it up and ratcheting up this tension. And some of the episodes can drag. I mean, overall they're really good. They drag and drag and drag, but then right at the end you get sucked back in. First couple of episodes set up the game board again, and then all the pieces start moving out until the end. You wipe them clean, start over again. It works. It works. I won't deny it, but I got a little tired of the Game of Thrones. So took some time off, and just recently met somebody who is really into the Game of Thrones. And we're already on episode, 7 of the current season? Last week's episode, actually yesterday, Sundays was the first live episode of Game of Thrones I have watched in, 4 years. And I'm going to spill some thoughts here, yo. Gonna get real. It's engaging. It's interesting. And it just might be enough to pull me in. But I'll tell you what's happened. So, what was it? Tuesday? No. Saturday, went ahead and watched last week's episode where Daenerys just fucks up the Lannisters with Drogon. Spoilers. Sorry, I should preface this by saying, hey, spoilers if you're not caught up, because I personally don't give a shit. I'm going to talk about it. So, fair warning, just skip to the next segment, which I've got to figure out what I'm going to talk about. So Daenerys is like, hey, I keep losing. I don't know why she's losing because I'm not watched any of the season up until now. Let me get my dragon. we're gonna go fuck up the Lannisters, who just got finished sacking High Castle or Highgarden, and they roll on in. The dragon's shooting his fire. Jaime's just shitting himself, and Bronn is, being the badass that Bronn is. And of course, the episode ends with a cliffhanger. Oh, did he die? Did he not die? We don't know what's going on. And then the next episode, this past yesterday's episode, goes back to the formula of we have some really big set pieces we need to set up. It was a matter of moving characters around. It wasn't too much engagement or much entertainment as far as, oh, this is really cool, this is happening, because we just had a fucking dragon laid siege to an army. Hard to follow that up. So they're going to try, but they need an episode or two to get everything in place. And this is kind of where the drag is for me, because I recognize it for what it is. We're setting up set pieces, we're making the necessary moves. And there have been a lot of rumblings and complaints about this season where it's moving along at too fast a clip. Apparently Varys and who's the old guy with the beard who served Stannis and is now with Jon Snow? Begins with a D. He liked the little girl with the two-face. Davos. Apparently they can paddle across the sea and make record time, but there is a passage of time that we're not aware of because the season's got to get its ass in gear. The show is about to wrap up, and we got some big, big stuff that has to happen. So, I've seen the latest 2 episodes of the season, and it's a thing of, well, you've missed 2 years worth of content. Namely, I missed Jaime's adventures in Dorne. I missed Cersei going batshit insane. And I definitely missed Ramsay Bolton and his little reign of terror. So everybody was raving, Battle of the Bastards, Battle of the Bastards. You have to watch Battle of the Bastards. And I did. I watched Battle of the Bastards, and it was a good episode. It was extremely well shot. It brought out a lot of emotion, like when Jon is being suffocated and stampeded. I believed it. I know Jon survives, and things like that, but it sucked me, and I was totally in. It was very visceral with Ramsay's dogs eating him, and the giant just kicked all kinds of ass, but it didn't have the same impact as like the battle for the wall did. And I believe the reason for that is because essentially I skipped to the good part. I didn't have to pay the iron price to get to the good stuff. I didn't have to go through the slog and build up this hate and resentment for Ramsay. And as such, the payoff wasn't nearly as sweet. It's just like, it's kind of a good episode. Now, the thing I have always, because if you've been listening to this show, I'm definitely into the weirder, more macabre elements of life. I've got a raging hard-on for the old gods and Lovecraftian mythos and things like that. So the White Walkers and the God of Many Faces are like, yes, sign me up. Tell me more. I want to get in on this. They're coming, guys. They're coming. Don't worry. They're coming. They'll be here. They're coming. The White Walkers have been doing a million-man march down south, and for as fast as they moved on that attack on the Wildling village, fuckers are just taking their time getting to the wall and doing stuff like that. And it's aggravating. So when I finally got to see the White Walkers in action, that was the next episode I watched. Like, you gotta watch Battle of the Bastards. You have to watch the one where the Night King is standing at the dock. He's like, "What's up? Come on, John. Come on. Bring it." And as much as I want to get into the White Walkers, again, I haven't had that prerequisite. I didn't sit through and slog through the season to get this sweet, sweet payoff. And it makes me wonder if the payoff is actually that sweet and that delicious. If we have to appreciate it by suffering through the setup and story pieces and and getting everything in place. And essentially, you don't realize how good you have it until you suck a lemon. So when we get to these pieces of the payout at the end of the season, I don't know that it's worth it. Now, that being said, after I finished last night's episode, I did go ahead and delve into the last 3 episodes of season 5 or 6, whichever one it is, where Cersei getting the shame nun treatment. And dug it. I mean, I watched 4 straight hours of Game of Thrones while editing shows and getting that all taken care of. So clearly, it's got me back in. But I have trepidation. I'm only dipping a toe into the water or so. I think I'm pretty sure I'm like calf deep at this point. But I don't know. It's kind of like Westworld, where we had a lot of build up, and unfortunately, Westworld didn't really get good until the last 5 minutes of the season. And I'm worried that's what's going to happen with Game of Thrones, where we have all this build up, and we all know we're past the point of the books now. HBO is freewheeling it based on the skeleton structure that George R.R. gave them. So I'm worried about how it's going to ultimately conclude, and everybody's super in on it, but I've been burned before, and especially by HBO. So I don't know. I'm digging what's happening with the characters, because I took a couple years off. I haven't seen them. So it's funny to see their growth and development, and then go back and catch like episodes here or there and say, oh, well, Daenerys was going to get married again. What's the deal with this? So Arya's a little assassin now. Littlefinger is doing his chaos as a ladder thing. I don't know. It's a fun little puzzle, and I guess I'm back in. A couple years away, or a couple years off. I'm back in. So do we become the show that says, oh, we got our weekly Game of Thrones spoilers? Oh, Daenerys, did you see the way she looked at Jon? Oh, swoon. And the dragons. I don't know. Maybe. I need fillers sometimes. I really, really need fillers sometimes. Speaking of filler, I need a 3rd segment. Gotta make sure we're not playing this one too long, because that's the one Twitch had a bitch fit about. You'd think I'd learn, like, Twitch doesn't like Portal. It's gonna mute everything. Well, what are you gonna do? I like the buffer. I like it a lot. I'm not gonna get rid of it. So that's why we're saying, fuck you, Twitch! We're going to YouTube! And we're gonna do it simultaneously. So, I talked very, very briefly, kind of glazed over it like a shitty Krispy Kreme donut, about the Renaissance Fair. Bristol Renaissance Fair, on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin, where all your medieval fantasies can come true. Kind of. If you're willing to sweat in high 80, low 90, 80% humidity degree weather, it's kind of awful. And it's really fucking expensive. Like, you guys saw my lovely blue scarf last episode. $15 goddamn dollars for a thin scarf. It looks fantastic. It's $15 well spent. But that was probably the cheapest thing you're going to find there. There's folks walking around with ram horn cups filled with mead and stuff. 120 bucks for that? You want a little wooden mug? $60 for that. You want a shitty, not even a good, but a shitty replica sword? 200 bucks. Cough it up. You want to get a foam mace for your kid? 65. Ridiculously overpriced. Now I get it. These are folks that are like carnies. They're vagabonds. They travel a circuit. They bring out their wares from fair to fair and have to charge an exorbitant amount to keep that RV fueled up. Just fine. That's part of the experience. You go there with a couple $100 in cash. You know you're going to burn through it all because you want to eat a turkey leg. Now, Renaissance Fair is good, fun time. It's hot, it's expensive, the food's overpriced, but it's a chance for folks to let their freak flag fly because you get dressed up. There's a lot of cosplay, not necessarily medieval stuff, but like, I'm gonna dress up as my favorite anime character. Or, I'm the Doctor, number 12, or Assassin's Creed is always super big at this place, and that's fine. That's great. I feel very much for the people that go all out and do, like, they don the full Crusader plate armor with the chainmail and the tunics, or you get the leather assassins. And I mean, I am all for people wearing skin tight leather outfits that push their boobs up, be them man or woman. But god damn it. Like, I'm standing there in shorts and a t-shirt, and I am schwitzing like a poodle in a parka. I can't imagine what it's like wearing that stuff. But I guess that's you have to suffer for your art. And you're having more fun because you're embracing this thing. Mad props to you. Kudos. And there are folks that push the boundaries of decency. Now, the only reason I say this, because, again, I've rambled and bitched about censorship and why it's the worst thing in the world. Censorship should exist in some form to protect those that aren't ready for it yet. It's not a matter of exposure for exposure's sake. It's a matter of protecting people that aren't ready for something. In this case, I'm primarily talking about children. Now, case in point, we're standing there watching Mooney's show, and 10 feet in front of us, there's a girl who's wearing a very lightly crafted together chainmail dress and the cap that goes over their head, and nothing else, just a thong underneath. So you're seeing everything. As a guy, sure, great, you do you, awesome. I'm gonna enjoy the view, and that's all wonderful. But there's this part of my brain that now triggers that I have a 3-year-old. I'm not going to be that perverted dad that's like, hey, you're 3. Look at this strange lady's ass. Kids shouldn't be exposed to that. Now, nudity's one thing. Artistically, fine. Great. There's nothing to be ashamed of. But when we start crossing into the line of making it sexual, then it becomes inappropriate for children. Fuck, it is hot in here. I'm sure it's nice out, but I get zero ventilation in this place, so I'm sorry. I have to take a drink. So, when it comes to kids, yes, it's a necessary thing. I don't want my son seeing things like that, because how do I explain somebody likes it when people look at their naked body to a 3-year-old who's trying to understand, why is that crane digging up the road? We're working on very basic concepts. These are the building blocks. When he's 13, yes, I can have that conversation with him. But at 3, it's not something he should be seeing. Now, chicken, chainmail, and thong. Turns out on that day was the least of my worries, my concerns. because as we ventured towards the jousting grounds, where a large number of people congregate, because the joust is kind of the big fucking deal of the day. It happens 3 times. You get the lady who's dressed up as the queen hosting it. It's a big pageantry. It's great, good time. Hanging around the jousting grounds, though, is a group of fellas. Group of fellas that apparently like dogs and doing things doggy style with leather and each other, which is fine. If you're into weird fetish shit, you like other guys, good for you. I'm not here to judge. Except when you're decked out in full BDSM gear with a bunch of kids running around. Because did I fail to mention that the jousting grounds is right next to the entertainment ride area of it, where a lot of the kids kind of hang out. And again, jousting ground, everybody's going to that. So when we have a group of half dozen more guys in those little pleather shorts that just essentially hide their dick, and then they got the chesty harnesses, they're wearing full leather dog masks with collars and weird rubber tails that wag back and forth. You're not dressing up for the sake of, oh, this is my inner persona. This is who I am on the inside, or I feel like I should express myself. There are lines and limits, because now you're exposing kids to this. Now, it's not wrong because they're gay, or because they have a certain fetish. You have to take into consideration of who you're exposing these things to. It's the intent behind it. So if there's a character who, say you're going dressed up as Anubis, Egyptian god, wears kind of a loinclothy thing, he's got some cool jewelry, super shredded dude, dog head. Fine, totally different. Because you know what? Anubis isn't there to show off his six-pack. He's there to take the souls of the dead to the afterworld. He just kind of looks like that. But when you're decked out in your kink gear that there's no question about it, you use for fucking, you've crossed a line to the point where you shouldn't be allowed in like that just because of the fact there are going to be children about. If it were like an 18 and over type of deal, go nuts. Go nuts. But having to try and explain that to a kid, that's fucked up. And I was surprised at how much it did bother me. I guess that dad part of my brain kicked in. Because again, how would I explain that to my 3-year-old? How would I tell him, hey, ignore the dog guys over there? I don't know. I mean, it would probably be a matter of me just kind of trying to distract him, like, oh, hey, look over there. Let's go over there. It's the same thing when we have, when I lived in Chicago near Halstead, essentially a very, large, thriving gay community, they would have their annual parade. Lovely affair. Great times. There was an IHOP right there. I'd get breakfast, watch the parade. But you see some of these parades where it is essentially an excuse for folks to have sex with one another in public. Not as cool. I'm not one for letting one thing define who you are. Be it gay, certain race. That's a part of you. That is not you. You be Brian, who works in accounting but also happens to be gay. Don't be the gay guy who also is an accountant Monday through Friday. There are many facets to each person. Then none should be so big that it completely defines who you are. It kind of ties back into the Nazi thing. Like, if you get a specific label, like, there's the queer, there's the Nazi, there's um, the black guy. There's the geek, the nerd, the slut. If that one thing begins to define you, it becomes a matter of you need to look inward. You need to figure out what it is you're actually about. Now, I'm not saying you can't be passionate about things. You can't be whole hog into something. It's like video games. You have some people that do nothing but play one video game over and over and over again. They get all the perks. They become a top ranked player. And then there's other players who can't do that. They play a set of like 5 games or not even that. They'll play through all of them once. They can't focus in on that one thing. But don't let your interest define who you are. And definitely don't expose children to your sexual interests, no matter how tame or far out there they are. Because as an adult, it is your responsibility, even if they are not your children, to protect them from things like that. It goes beyond a father-son, mother-daughter, parent-child bond to a old generation protecting the new generation from the dangers and sick things of the world until their minds are ready to accept that and explore that and experiment with it. You can't just rush a child into something because you're okay with it. I love dick jokes and sex jokes and filthy comedy and dark stories and things like that. But my son is a very, very, very long way away from being able to enjoy those things. From me being able to tell him, a dirty joke or say, hey, let's sit down and watch From Dusk Till Dawn. And the same applies to, it goes to a more tribal thing where we have to protect the young because they are the future. And as I say it, I realize how weird it is for me to say something like this. But it is. It's a responsibility that we have. Much as I wouldn't want my own son seeing this, I don't want somebody else's kids seeing that because it's wrong. It's fucked up. And it's a shame when that's the biggest thing that I walk away from when I go to the Renaissance Fair, when it makes me question whether or not I should bring my son to it because of what he may potentially run into. Now, don't misconstrue what I'm saying in the sense that he's going to be exposed to a lot of stuff. That's the only way you get perspective on the world itself. You can't close someone off and censor books by blacking out the parts that don't agree with your philosophy. You have to expose yourself to things, take risks, go on adventures, try new things. That's the only way you can appreciate what the world truly has to offer. Now, that being said, everything comes in due time. So, I don't know. I'm disappointed. I guess I expect better of people, but much like the Nazis, it's easy to get disappointed in folks because there are a lot of dumb fucks out there, and I know you guys aren't them. At least I hope not. I look in the chat, there's some dumb shit going on in there, but you know what? It's the responsibility of each and every one of us to rise above the collective shit, the unwashed asses of the world, and be better. Oh man, that we had a weird roller coaster of an episode today. Start low, angry, get really excited and inquisitive, and then right back into disappointment. But you know what? That's the roller coaster of life that we got. And it's, again, it's those different facets, those different things that we get to experience that make them intriguing and enjoyable. So, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you to everybody that watched live. We'll have the archives up here soon. We'll see how everything kind of panned out in terms of, of how the new schedule and recording structure is going to work. But thank you again to everybody that voted. We'll see you next week on Monday.
I can feel the end, it's drawing near. It will soon be here. Oh, that much is clear. So shut the doors and turn off the lights. Let us sleep tonight. Let us huddle in the dark. Oh, my lover, you are beautiful, but that beauty comes at such a price. And I know that you'll soon disappear, like the dark and the night.
This show is part of the HFC Gaming Network. Get more at horrorofcasitis.com.